Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on cyber investigation using Autopsy. We will be starting just in a minute. We have two anchors today, my colleagues, Uche Abua and Okpeyemi Olaifa. So they will be, taking you through this webinar today. There'll basically be two sessions. The first session, would have, the initial giving you a background to, this topic, and also the second session will, be a more practical session where we will show you how to, go in depth with using the tool, the Autopsy tool, and actually, bringing a case study, to analyze and, using the Autopsy tool to, get to the root of whatever we are trying to investigate or whatever we're trying to find. So without further ado, I would call on Okpeyemi to just kickstart this presentation. And before I go, just to mention, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop any questions, or if you even have comments, drop them in the Q&A box, and I or any other panelists on the webinar would be able to get back to you quickly, or we wait till the end of the session where we will have a general Q&A session where we can take all your questions and provide answers. So thank you, and okay, over to you.
Thank you, Ekene. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Okpeyemi Olaifa. I'm a computer science graduate. I'm a cybersecurity consultant. I'm a certified forensic analyst, as much as I'm also a certified security analyst. I'm a certified vulnerability assessment specialist. I've performed several security assessments, both network and applications, for organizations within and out of Nigeria. So we just go straight to giving us a brief introduction of who we are, who Digital Encode is, and what Digital Encode is all about. Digital Encode is a leading consulting and integration firm. It was founded in 2003. We specialize in the design, management of IT infrastructures, telecommunication environments, as much as business critical networks. Technology to us in Digital Encode serves two purposes. The first is to solve a problem, while the other is to save money. So as much as we are certified ISO 27001 company, we also help to translate strategic business objectives into achievable technology solution. In 2012, we were appointed as the only technical partner to the Central Bank of Nigeria on information security and electronic fraud, which we retained yet again in 2015, which brings us to the next thing I'm going to be talking about. That's more than 15 years of existence. We've achieved several milestones that we'll just be running through quickly. In 2009, we were made the first licensed penetration tester in sub-Saharan Africa. And since then, we've been conducting penetration testing for organizations within Nigeria and even other countries in Africa. In 2011, we gave a briefing to the Office of the National Security Advisor. In 2012, we also participated at the Global Cyber Olympics event. That was an international competition for ethical hackers, and we won the overall best prize for the African continent, which we yet again represented Nigeria in 2015. Still that same 2012 till date, we've implemented and certified various financial institutions to the payment card industry data security standards, what we know as the PCI DSS. The company has its second COVID-5 assessor in sub-Saharan Africa. So ever since that 2013 till date, we've implemented and certified various organizations to the global standards, such as the ISO 27001, and as seen on the screen right now. In 2015, the Nigerian Stock Exchange was certified to the ISO 27001 too. Also, in 2018, we carried out security assessments for Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, which we all know as NNPC, including their strategic business units, NAPIMS, and the likes. Then the last thing is Digital Encode is a platinum team member of ISECOM, which you know as the Institute for Security and Open Methodology. So I haven't explained what we do in Digital Encode and what we've acquired so far in our 15 years of existence. We'll just show you a picture of all the awards that we've been able to acquire so far. So these are all the awards in this picture. Then we'll move over to introducing our founders to us. So we have our founder, Dr. Adewale Obadare, and our other founder, Dr. Oluseyi Akidenge. So this is a partnership letter with the CBN. As part of our milestones, we also stated it that we are in partnership with the CBN. So this is a partnership letter with our CBN. So we just go straight to the reason why we are here today, the objectives for this training. So what are we going to get at the end of this training? We're going to provide an overall descriptions of methods or processes would use to uncover cyber attack and fraudulent activities. We're going to introduce us to those tools that we'll be using, both for the disk imaging, that's the compromised imaging, the compromised system, and even for the investigation itself. So we'll also give an overall description of the forensics process, the investigation stages. We'll also be introduced to that. We'll also tell us how we can use the investigation tool, which is known as Autopsy, to recover deleted files and deleted partition on acquired images. We'll also learn how to hunt for the activities of cyber threats actors on our data source, and most especially know how to report the all the evidence gathered in such a way that is presentable in the court of law. So this is our agenda for the day. Introduction, the first thing of an agenda, as you can see on the screen, introduction to fraud and cyber attack. What is computer forensics? Why is it important? Why do people do forensics? What are the investigation stages for forensics? We'll introduce us to the imaging tool we'll be using, which is the Access Data FTK Imager. Then we'll quickly run through a demo on how to image a disk using this particular tool. And definitely would run through a demo on how to now investigate this particular image, this compromised system that has been imaged, how to then investigate it to come up with your conclusion, your report at the end of the day. And this is going to be a very interesting section because it's going to be in form of a demo using a real life case scenario. So we get to put everything we're going to learn in this training into practice. And definitely question and answer. As my colleague initially said, there's a question and answer option, so we can please just include any questions we have and be sure they'll be attended to. So this is our disclaimer. What we are about to see now is carried out purely for educational and informative purposes and only for an intended audience of responsible individuals with a genuine interest in improving the analysis and investigation of compromised systems. Digital Encode makes no claim to the accuracy or completeness of this demo. Digital Encode accepts no responsibility or liability arising from this demo. So having read our disclaimer, we just move straight to the first thing we have on our agenda, which is the introduction to fraud and cyber attack. So what do we understand by fraud, basically? Unlike the theft of crime, where you forcefully collect something from someone, fraud is basically the use of false information to illegally collect something from someone, something like data, it could be money, it could be property, information, whatever it is you want to get from the person. By using forceful information, you're misleading the person, you're possibly committing a fraudulent act. And it's interest us to know that there are two ways fraud can be committed. It could either be an internal fraud or external fraud. So it could be committed internally within an organization, that's the employees in the organization. It could be an external fraud. It could be the customers that are patronizing the organization. It could be the vendors patronizing. It could just be even a random person that must have maybe noticed the inflow of money to that particular organization, or feels the organization is holding a lot of vital data that if it gets hold of, could use for several fraudulent activities. Which brings us to what the next I'm going to be talking about, that there are different types of fraud. So depending on what the fraudster want to achieve at the end of the day depends on the kind of fraud the person would decide to commit. So we have different types of fraud, ranging from the computer fraud down to internet fraud, down to the healthcare fraud, insurance fraud, and the likes. We all agree with me that consumer fraud is very rampant these days. Like in the last 2-3 years, we've been hearing of different Ponzi schemes where they come, they tell people that they should invest a certain amount of money, and after a few days, they will get double the money. So they get to do that like consecutively for people to trust them, for them to gain people, for people to gain their trust, to the extent that at some point they decide to now put in all their money, including the interest they've gotten so far, and invest all of it. Then at this point, when they do that, they find out that they don't get the returns anymore. Both their capital, both their interest, they don't get to hear from these people anymore. And there's no how they can even like track them down. So these are all of these schemes, like consumer fraud kind of example that is out there that we can all relate to. So many people participated in the Ponzi schemes, and at the end of the day, they were scammed. They stole, they ended up going away with their money. So that's the example of the consumer fraud. We have phishing. At one point or the other, all of us, if not all, some of us would have gotten a phishing mail before. So these people, these fraudsters, they actually make their research before they decide to follow through the type of fraud they want to. So before someone can send you a phishing mail, definitely the person would have done a background research on you. It could be them knowing you're looking for an admission in a school. It could be them knowing, oh, you're trying to buy something. So let's take for an example, you're looking for an admission in a university. They even know to the extent that they know the university you're looking into for admission. So they tend to send a phishing mail disguising to come from that particular university. In fact, carries the logo, carries everything that you would expect the university to send in the mail. It carries everything, carries information, and then you might probably see a link or an attachment which they will ask you to either download or follow through the link. So in doing any of these things, either following through the link or downloading, you get to infect your system with a particular malware, and they get to get whatever information or data they need from that particular system, and that they can use to their advantage. So all of what I've been explaining since falls under the consumer fraud. Let's talk about computer fraud. Computer fraud is all about using computer to in an unauthorized way access another person's computer. So you're not given the access to another person's computer, but then you now use your computer in a way to the extent that you have unauthorized access to someone else's computer. And trust me, once you have unauthorized access to someone else's computer, you get hold of data, you get hold of information that are not meant for you, and then you end up using it for whatever you want to use it for. Internet fraud, this is also out there, it's very rampant, where they use the internet to defraud people. They use it to scam people. And it is very interesting to know that most of these information these people end up making use of, they get it from our social medias. So you could imagine someone being on a weight loss journey, and you're all on your social media saying you're on a weight loss journey, this day 2, this day 3, you're using probably this and that, but you would like someone to recommend a good slimming tea company for you to purchase the slimming tea from. So such fraudster can take advantage of that. And then you just go on your social media one day, you start seeing maybe pages just saying they're into slimming tea, they're into this, you get defrauded that way. Another thing can be someone that is a shopping freak. You like shopping a lot, and they know you like patronizing this particular brand. Another thing they could do is to just clone that particular website, like get a duplicate of that exact website. So you visit that website normally, like the way you do, you buy something, you pay, and then you must have entered your credit card details at some point. So they get to get hold of your money, scam you of that money, then get the card information, which they will later use to still further scam that particular person. It just takes a very security conscious, or let me say a very careful person, to visit a cloned or a duplicated website for you to actually know that this is not the exact website you visit on a normal day, because they make it look almost original, just with a little change. So that's all on the internet fraud. We have the financial fraud, failure to enter transaction, or maybe adjust your transaction. You can say accountants, cashiers, you would fall under this category. Let's say the organization made a sale of like 1 million, and as an accountant or as a cashier, you're meant to enter 1 million worth of transaction into your system, your accounting transaction ledger, and then you enter a 990,000 naira. You'll be told the 10,000 naira. So these fraudsters are so wise to the extent that they wouldn't just at once steal the large sum of money, because they know that would draw attention to them. So they steal in bits, So they steal in bits. So let's imagine there's a 10 naira debit from our accounts like every day. you just imagine, oh, it's just 10 naira. You probably not even pay attention to it on why the 10 naira is leaving your account. But you could imagine the number of heads, these frauds that would deduct 10 naira from on a daily basis and then do that for a whole month. Then you could imagine the kind of amount this person is actually going to end up scamming people of. So that is all about the internet fraud. It could be access misappropriation. That's you giving somebody a fake check, and that way you're defrauding the person. Even the healthcare fraud and the insurance fraud, because people know how well the inflow is to all these kind of places, so they get to like also target them. So just simply the types of fraud. So I haven't explained what fraud is, the ways fraud can be committed, and then the types of fraud that can be committed. The next thing in people's head is, why do people commit this fraud? Who are the set of people committing this fraud? It brings us to the next thing we're going to be talking about, which is known as the fraud triangle. So this fraud triangle has three major things that we're going to look at here. It's pressure, opportunity, and rationalization. So these three triangles basically address why people would want to commit fraud, and who are the set of people that actually commit this fraud. So let's take the first one that says pressure. There could be something, be it financial or emotional, that would pressure you to want to, through an illegal means, commit fraudulent activity. So let's take, for example, as someone, you're owing a debt, and then the person is on your neck, coming every day to accuse you of paying up the debt, and you've been thinking, how are you going to get the debt paid? You don't have enough money. You don't have enough money on you to get the debt paid. Then you start thinking of illegal ways to get money out for you to pay your debt and to be free from that particular person. So this person falls under pressure. That's financial pressure. It could be emotional pressure in the sense that maybe a relative is sick, and then the money is needed for the treatment, and at that point you're not financially stable, and you're being pressured into just looking for illegal means to just make sure that you treat your relative. That way you're committing a fraud because you're going through an illegal means. Then let's look at the other one, which we know as opportunity. Opportunity in the sense that when you're being in a situation where you have the ability to actually use something in an illegal way. For example, you have access to someone's card details. Because you have access to the person's card details, you decide to bank on that and then use that as an opportunity to then defraud the person, and then withdraw a sum of money from the person's account. That's you exploiting the opportunity you have. It can be you having access to a particular service within the organization, and this service is in a way such that if you decide to use the illegal way to exploit this particular service, you'll be able to defraud the company. So because you have access to that service, you bank on that opportunity, and then you decide to use that to commit fraud. So this pressure and opportunity will make us understand that not even only junior staffs in organization can be pressured or can decide to want to illegally defraud the company, or can decide to want to commit any fraudulent act. Even top managers could fall under the fact that they have the opportunity to commit whatever fraud they want to commit. So that address who are the type of people that commit fraud, and then why do people commit fraud. So the third one, which we know as rationalization. So rationalization is basically your justification for your action. Like, okay, I want to, currently I'm not financially stable, so I just want to borrow a particular sum of money from the company's account, which I'm going to pay back at the end of the month, or which I'm going to pay back when I'm financially stable. So the fact that you're going through illegal means to actually get this done, and you're justifying your actions, then you fall under rationalization. Another very common example that can be used is, let's take the Yahoo boys for example. So a Yahoo boy will tell you, well, I'm scamming the whites because they've scammed my forefathers back there. They're just trying to justify the fraudulent acts that they are committing. So those are the three key things why someone would decide to want to commit a fraudulent act, or why someone would decide to commit a fraudulent act, or why someone would decide to maybe commit an attack or a cyber attack on somebody. So this address the set of people that commits attack. It could be just a random person, it could be junior employees, it could be top managers. And it also address the reason why people would want to commit fraudulent acts. So having known all of this, let's move on to the next thing that we know by cyber attack, because we have to be able to place the difference between what we know by fraud and what we know by cyber attack. So what is cyber attack? Cyber attack is basically the use of computers by cyber criminals against several computers or networks. So there are two reasons why an attacker would want to carry out a cyber attack. The first is to disable the target computer, knock it offline, make it unreachable for even the owner of the computer. The next thing is to get access to that target system and perhaps even gain admin privileges on the system. So everybody knows that definitely once you have admin privilege on someone's system, then you have access to a lot of data, a lot of probably sensitive information and all the likes. So that would be the two reasons why an attacker would decide to want to attack a targeted computing device. There are different types of device. There are different types of cyber attacks that can be carried out by an attacker depending on the end result, what the attacker wants to achieve at the end of the day. So we have the phishing, which has been explained earlier, but I would also like to explain something on that since this phishing. Someone can be social engineered. So what do I mean by being social engineered? So you could just get a call from somebody pretending to be a close relative. So as you pick up the call, they even tend to disclose personal, private information that you know only your close relatives would know, just to be able to get your trust, just for you to trust them and believe that it's actually coming from a close relative. That way they could get you to transfer a large amount of money. That way they could have access to your card details, because they could just do a lot of things by pretending to be someone close. And definitely they would have provided you a very close information, personal information that you would believe that it's a family member. So another thing we're looking at here is the ransomware. So ransomware is basically you having unauthorized access to someone's system and then holding the system as ransom. So you're not actually giving the owner of the system access to that particular system. You're then demanding that a ransom has to be paid before you release that system to that person. So that's another way to actually carry out an attack on somebody. That's another way criminals decide to carry out cyber attacks on people. Another type of cyber attack we'll be looking at is what we know as the malware. So malware could be virus, it could be Trojan horse and the likes. So this malware, they find a way to get it into your system, either through phishing or through visiting a website that has malware on it. So you get to download it. It could be through pop-ups. So you get to download it on your system. And trust me, when these malwares, virus and the likes get on your system, they get to affect your system, and they get whatever information they want to get from it. Another we're going to look at is the denial of service. So denial of service is basically sending traffic to a particular website. So you can decide, you can imagine when you're sending like a lot of traffic almost at the same time to a particular website, the website becomes unavailable. This falls under one of the reasons why we said a cyber attack can decide to target somebody, which is to disable that particular computer, that particular service or network. So that would fall under that, because you would make this website unavailable for that time being. Another interesting one here is the man in the middle. So what do we understand by a man in the middle attack? I'll just explain to us in form of a scenario. So Mr. A is trying to send money to Mr. B. Let's say 10,000 naira. So Mr. A is trying to send 10,000 naira to Mr. B, but there's someone at the middle that then intercept that transaction, steal that particular session, and manipulate it in such a way that Mr. A transaction now goes to him or herself. So the person gets credited instead of Mr. B getting credited. Isn't that interesting? Another thing that can be done is Mr. A himself could even be the attacker, where he doesn't intend to send money to Mr. B, but he's pretending to want to send money to Mr. B. So what he does is, definitely everybody at some point have used internet banking or whatever it is, application you could use to transfer money before. And we are all aware that you cannot enter a negative value when you're sending money to somebody. So Mr. A then enters 10,000 naira and then intercept at the middle and puts a negative value to that particular amount, and then it goes to Mr. B. So in this kind of situation, instead of Mr. B getting the credited value, which is the 10,000 naira, it gets debited. And then the money now goes back to Mr. A and gets credited. So the intention was not actually to send Mr. B money, because Mr. A would get credited in this scenario, and Mr. B, that didn't plan to even do a transaction with somebody, would now get debited. So that's like the man in the middle part of the cyber attack. So we look at SQL injection. So SQL injection is basically you including malicious SQL statements in database. So for example, let's say an organization have their employee database definitely placed on payroll. So let me put it that way. So you're not including an SQL, a malicious SQL statement. Probably you create yourself as a user in that kind of database. So you're under the payroll list. And when the time comes for the payroll to be released, let's say just a set of statements are executed for the salary or whatever it is to be paid to the particular staff in the database. Now imagine you've included yourself as a user. That's as an attacker, you've included yourself as a user. So obviously you get paid alongside with the user. So you've actually scammed the company of that particular amount of money. So that's another way a cyber criminal would want to carry out a cyber attack on an organization. We have the cryptojacking, where you can just mine to get cryptocurrency data and everything from a computing device, from a person's computing device. We have the last one, which is the zero-day exploit. So zero-day exploit is basically when the weakness in a system has actually been exploited even before the weakness is discovered. So I'll break it down. The attacker had gotten to know of a particular vulnerability, a weakness in that system, and has even exploited it even before, let's say, the organization themselves knows that there's a vulnerability in that system. Even before the fix for that vulnerability comes out, the attacker has exploited the vulnerability. So all of this just explains the type of cyber attacks that can be carried out by a cyber criminal. So we'll just quickly look through this image by the right. Some years ago, a cyber attack was carried out on Target supermarket. So the attacker phished a third-party contractor. So this third-party contractor is the one in charge of their ventilation system. So when the attacker phished this third-party contractor, he was able to get stolen credentials. So he used that credentials to access the contractor portal. After he had access to the contractor portal here, he was able to access the Windows file server. Probably they were on the same network. So when he attacked the accessed the internal Windows file server, he infects the file server with malware. So that goes to the retailer POS device. So since the attacker has infected the POS system with the malware, the malware now scrapes RAM for clear text Stripe data. So this place, they get to see, like, let's say, retailers information, retailers card details. So all of that details, it now sends it through this server. So from this server, it goes through to this FTP server. So we would all see on the screen that this place says external Russia. So that's to tell you that an attacker could actually be in another country, for example, be in Russia, and be carrying out a cyber attack in an organization in Nigeria. So it's very possible. The attacker doesn't necessarily have to be around where the cyber attack is carried on. So having explained what fraud is, the types of fraud, why people want to commit fraud, type of people that commit fraud, what cyber attack is, and the type of cyber attacks that can be committed, I think the next thing on our mind now would be like, okay, so how do we detect these people? How do we find out who are those doing this thing? How do we know how they did it? And how do we know where it was done? So which brings us to the next thing we're going to be talking about, what we know as forensics and why forensics is important to us. So forensics is basically the use of analysis techniques to gather as much evidence you can gather from a particular compromised device. So that evidence you've gathered is now presented in a way that it is acceptable in the court of law. There are different tools that we can use for computer forensics. We could use Autopsy, we could use Encode, X-Ways, the suit kit as listed on the screen, and so on. Why would people then want to do forensics? You would agree with me that the rate at which we exchange information currently online is alarming, like it's a whole lot. And attackers know this, that there would definitely, a day can't go by without communications going over the internet. So they decide to use this opportunity to carry out whatever cyber attack they want to carry out on somebody or on an organization. So why would people, this is why people would want to now do forensics. As an organization, you want to do forensics to ensure the overall integrity of your network infrastructure or your computer. As a person or as an organization too, you would want to perform forensics because you need a structured investigation while you are maintaining a documented chain of evidence. What do I mean by documented chain of evidence? So chain of evidence is simply series of events in a sequential way that tells you why the person, that tells you where the person did that thing, when the person carried out that activity, and who was the person that carried out the activity. So the documented there means all of this now in a document, now documented in a way that it can be presented with the court of law. So that's basically what documented chain of evidence means. So you perform this investigation while you're maintaining that documented chain of evidence to find out exactly what has happened on that compromised device. Like I also said earlier, I said organizations would use it to ensure the integrity and survivability of their network infrastructures as much as their computer. So these are the reasons why people would want to carry out forensics, and this is what forensics will do to us. So for the course of our training, the tool would be making use of for our forensics will be autopsy, which will be introduced to you by my other colleague when we get to the second part of this training. So having known all of this, we need to move on to what then are the investigation process. We've talked about documented chain of evidence. So for you to have a documented chain of evidence in a way that is presentable in the court of law, definitely you have to follow through a process. You cannot just have it all not arranged. No, it has to follow through an investigation process. So we'll just go ahead to talk about the forensics, the 5 forensics investigation process. We have the identification and the preparation, which is the first phase. We have the collection phase, which is the second. We have the examination phase, which is the third. We have the analysis phase, the fourth, and then the reporting and presentation, which is the 5th phase. So the first phase is the identification and preparation. So the first thing you have to, first of all, identify that something fishy has happened. You have to, first of all, identify that a transaction is not complete. You have to, first of all, identify that this particular system, computing system, has been compromised. So having identified all of that, the organization will now come up with a policy to support a sound forensic process. So once they come up with that policy to sound a forensic process, we move on to the next stage that we know as the collection stage. So the thing is, once you've identified that a fraudulent activity has been carried out, you identify that a cyber attack has taken place. Now, the first set of people that actually interact with this thing to actually try to gather every piece of evidence they can gather who are those we know as the first responder. So they fall under the collection phase. They are the ones that try as much as possible to now try to separate the compromised system from all other systems. They try to look for every piece of information they can get, maybe an unusual login at so time, maybe installation of a particular malware at so time. They get to find out all of this information. And you see, all of this piece of information, the first responders find out, they have to put it in a document, because this document has to be passed to whoever is going to examine that particular image. So having done all of that by the first responder, the next thing is now, this compromised system that has been segregated, we need to image the content of that system. So this is where imaging is being done, when you now image the compromised system. So after you've imaged the compromised system as a first responder under the collection stage, and then you have the document that shows all the piece of evidence you put together, which makes up the case scenario. So for every image to be analyzed, there is going to be a case scenario. So after you must have done that, you then pass it to the forensic analyst that is under the 3rd stage, which we know as the examination stage. So the forensic analyst under this examination stage then takes this image and this case scenario and then examine the image. look out for deleted files, look out for encrypted files, look out for hidden files, look out for every other bit of information that makes sense to the case scenario that's been given to you. So after the forensic analyst has done that, looked at all of this information, looked at the case scenario that's been given, it then moves on to the analysis stage. So after you must have examined the image alongside the case scenario, you then start to make analysis. That means you start relating them to each other. Every piece of evidence that you have already, you start connecting the dots to find out, oh, okay, this was exactly how the person did it. The person actually visited this website, download this particular tool, to then use this tool for, so this is where you now come up with your own analysis at this point. And trust me, even as the first responder have documented all of their processes, even at this analysis stage, the forensic analyst will have to document all the procedure too, which will take us to the last stage, which is the reporting and the presentation stage. So this is where the reporting comes from. So all of this series of events that happened in that particular image alongside the case scenario is then documented. This is what we now call the documented chain of evidence, but in a layman's language is known as the report. So this report is now what is presented in the court of law to prosecute the criminal that would have carried out the cyber attack or the fraudulent act. So I guess with all of this explanation now, we would all understand the investigation process, the forensics investigation process to be carried out on a particular compromised computing device. So before my other colleague comes in to take the last three parts of these investigation stages, that's the examination, analysis, and reporting and presentation aspects, would quickly look through the first stage and the second stage, which is the identification and the preparation stage and the collection stage. So let us all assume that this particular system I'm using for the training has been compromised. So we've identified the system to be compromised. The organization has come up with a policy to support a sound forensics process. Then the next thing is, let's gather as much information we can. So currently we have a case scenario, but the case scenario is going to be read to us by my other colleague. So we won't be reading it here. So what we'll pay attention to here under the collection stage is how then do we now image the compromised computing device, which is this device I'm using for the training. So I'll just introduce us to the tool we'll be using, tell us why we are using the tool, before we now run through a quick demo on how to actually image a compromised computing device. So the tool we'll be using is what we know as the Access Data FTK Imager. So Access Data FTK Imager is basically an imaging tool. So there are other imaging tools that can be used, save a back, snapback, that arrest, and so on. But we're using Access Data FTK Imager for this training. Reason being that it helps us to create images of local hard drives, CDs, DVDs, thumb drives, and the likes. But we need to note something when we want to use the Access Data FTK Imager. We need to note that it can be installed on a flash, not necessarily on the compromised system you want to image. You can have it on a flash to image whatever data you want to image. Then you can have it even downloaded on your system, and then you image that particular data on the system you want to image. Another major part, which is the second point that we have to look at, is if you want to image a data, you have to allocate more than enough space than the data size you want to image. So what I'm just trying to say is, you want to image a 4 gig data, you definitely not allocate a 2 gig space for a 4 gig data, because that way your image would even be complete. And once your image is not complete, you won't be able to analyze such image. So you have to allocate more than enough space, probably a 5 gig or a 6 gig or a 4 gig data that you want to image. So that's basically what this is all about. So since we've been introduced to the tool we'll be using, the Access Data FTK Imager, before we move on to the investigation, we'll just quickly run through how to image a compromised computing device. So I'll just take us through the process quickly. So this is the tool, the Access Data FTK Imager. So the first thing you do once you launch the application is you click on File. Once you click on File, you click on Create Disk Image. So once you create disk image, you get to see different source evidence type. We have the physical drive. That means this could be anything you can touch. It could be your hard drive, it could be your USB drive. Wherever you have your data stored that is physical, you can touch it. you click on the physical drive. It could be a logical drive. That's if you want to image your local disk, like the system, your local disk on your system, or even a partition on your system. So since we are assuming this system is a compromised system, and we are imaging the system, we'll just be imaging a partition on this system. So it will be most likely most likely select the logical drive when we are continuing with the process for imaging the disk. Then we have the image file. That is if you just want to image a particular file on a system or on a computing device. It could be contents of a folder. That's in a scenario where you have like different folders in your cloud, and you just want to image just a particular content in a folder from your cloud. It could be when you have multiple users using a particular system and you have different contents on that particular system, and you just want to image just the content of a particular user on the system. So you could go with the content of the folder. You could select the multiple CD or DVD if whatever data you want to image is on CDs or is on DVDs, then that's this. But for the course of this training, like I said earlier, we'll be going through the logical drive because we're just imaging a partition of this system. So once you click on the logical drive, you click on next. Once you click on next, you have to select that partition of the system because we are imaging just the partition of this system. So we'll click on the F drive because that's the name of the partition drive on the system. Then we click on finish. Once we click on finish, the next thing we are meant to do is to add image destination. But before we add image destination, we just need to quickly talk about the check boxes here because they are quite important, especially the first one. So the first one says verify images after they are created. So what this means is after your image has successfully been created, or let me just say after your image has been created, this will then validate your image for you to ensure that it is exactly the content of your data that is in that image. So you would get to know at this point if your data is corrupt. So that is why it's advisable to check this text box, this checkbox that says verify images after they are created, for you to exactly know the status of your data that you've imaged. You could check the pre-calculate progress statistics if you want to know the total time it would take you to image the data you have. But would really not check this because we don't have that much time to even wait to completely image the data that we have. So we'll just move ahead to adding the image destination. So when you click on add image destination, you get to select your destination image type. We have 4 different type of image you would want. It could be raw in the sense that you just want to image the exact copy of your data. You don't want any additional feature with it, just that. And we should also take note that any raw image comes with an extension of .001. So anytime you get to see an image that has an extension of .001, that passes a knowledge to you that this is a raw image. You could decide to pick SMART or the AFF, which you know as the Advanced Forensics format. Those two are not majorly in use, but what SMART would do for you is SMART would image your data in single or multiple segment files alongside with metadata. But AFF would image your data, but split it into 2 layers. We know the first as the data representation layer. So that holds all the names of the data that is being stored. Then the other one is what we know as the disk representation, the data storage layer. So that would like store your data in either binary format or in XML file. But for the course of this training, we'll just be focusing on what we call the E01. So that's like the Encode standard. Why? Because it will image the exact copy of your data, yes, but it would also add additional features to validate that the image you just did, it contains the exact data. So it will just work like side by side with this verified image here to validate your data to ensure that your data is accurate and correct. So it will mostly generate what we know as hash, 2 types of hash. We have the MD5 hash and the SHA-1 hash. So the MD5 hash is basically the message digest hash, while the SHA-1 hash is what we know as the secure hash algorithm. So what these 2 would do, they are basically hash algorithm, and they will help to ensure that the data has not been altered. And the good thing about this hash is during investigation, like on autopsy, you can decide to use the hash that will be generated to also analyze your data, just to validate through to ensure that your data has not been altered, even on the autopsy. So we'll just move forward to selecting the E01. And one other important thing we need to note about selecting E01 is your image would come with an extension .E01. So that just shows the difference between, it makes you identify when you're seeing an encased standard image or you're seeing a raw image. So select the E01, you click on the next. At this point, you enter your case number. So every case you want to create has a case number. So for the course of this training, I'm just going to be using the 002. The evidence number, this could be, the organization can have an evidence number for that particular evidence. Maybe it's going to be an evidence like a sequential one that would still come up. So they might have like an evidence number. And it could be you as a person just entering your evidence number. I mostly like to use the same number with that of my case number, not because of any particular reason, just for the training. Unique description, examiner, and notes. These fields are not compulsory, but you could fill them. For example, you have multiple USB drives where you save your image to, and most of your USB drives, they look alike. Maybe you have like at this unique description, you could just put like the serial number of that particular USB drive, so that in case you want to come back to look for a particular case, you could easily identify, because all of this information at the end of the day, when you're done imaging, it generates a text file also that stores all of this information that you could refer to and easily identify from the set of USB drives you have. So we can just move ahead and not fill all of this because we're just running through the training. So we click on next, and then it brings us to this place. So this is the image destination folder. This is just talking about what I said earlier, that you have to allocate a space that is more than the data, your data size that you want to image. So we'll just be saving it to our desktop. So I'll click on desktop. That's saying that this particular image has to be saved on my desktop. Then I'll allocate a file name to my image. So I'll just go with the same 002 I've been using, and then put my here. This is how I like to save my image, so I'll know when that particular data was imaged. Then one interesting part we have to look at here before we finish and allow our data to be imaged is the image fragment size. By default, it is 1,500 MB. You could decide to set it to 0 if you don't want your image to be fragmented. I mean, you don't want your image to come in bits. So you want to image a 4 gig data. Your image fragmented size is 1,500 MB, but you want your image as 1. You don't want it to break it. Then you can set it to 0. So you image your 4 gig as 1. But if you leave it as this default 1,005, that's you accepting that your image is going to have to be broken into 3 fragments. That's the first image with the 1,500 MB size, the second with the 1,500 MB size, and then the third with the 1,000 MB size, which makes a total of the 4 gig image. So if you don't mind your image being fragmented, then you could decide to go with the default of the 1,500 MB. And one good thing is, or let me say, how you would know when an image is being fragmented is the extension. You know, during the course of the training, we selected the encased standard, that's the E01, and I said something earlier. I said it would always come with an extension of .E01. So if we selected 1,005, we left it as the default. That means it's going to like fragment it into 3 images. So we get to see the image with the extension of .E01. We see the second image with the extension of .E02. And then we see the third image with the extension of .E03. So whenever you come by an image like that, that's the E01, E02, E03. That's to tell you that those images are together and they make up one image. And one good thing about the tool that we are going to be using for our forensic investigation is they allow us to load all of these 3 images and analyze them at once. So you don't have to be analyzing all of your images at once. No, you can load them together on the Autopsy, the forensic investigation tool, and then you analyze them all at once. That's the good thing about the tool that we're going to be using in the course of this training. So since I'm imaging a less than 1,500 MB, I'll just go with the default 1,500 MB. So I click on finish. Once I click on finish, then it has accepted, it has added my information here, and it has added the fact that it should be saved to the desktop. So I haven't done all of that. The next thing I do is just click on the start. So once I click on start, it starts creating my image. I see my status here. I see the destination where it's going to save it. I see the progress as it starts creating. Then I see the elapsed time. That's the time it is currently. And I see the estimated time left. So the reason why this will not display is because when I was explaining those checkboxes, I explained the verify image, I explained the pre-calculate time. We decided not to let the pre-calculate time for the course of the training because we can't even wait to completely image this data. So if we had selected the pre-calculated time, then it would have displayed here the total time it would take to actually image that partition, that compromised partition we want to image, but we don't have any business with that. So I haven't explained and given a short, a quick demo on how to image a file. I'll just take us to the end result, what it would show after you are done imaging the file. So I'll just take us to see what we'll get to see after an image has been completed. So we'll get to see these two things, or let me just say, yeah, these two things alongside your image. So you get to see your image, yes. Then this box will come up that says verify/image, drive/image verify results. Why would this come up? Because we've selected verified images after the image has been created. So this will come up with the name that's been entered, come up with the sector count, and come up with the MD5 hash and the SHA-1 hash I talked about. But the important part of this box is to look at the verified results. So under the verified results, you need to take note of the what is written in front of it, which is a match. So let's say anytime you image the data of a compromised system, and then your verified result says match, that's to tell you that it has validated the exact content of your image. So it is exact, it is accurate, it has not been altered. But once your verified result says unmatched, that's to tell you that that content of that image is corrupt. And trust me, once the content of an image is corrupt, you would not be able to analyze that image. So that's like the sole essence of rechecking the verified image checkbox. So to help us know the status of that particular image that we just did. Another thing you get to see alongside the image and this result here is a text file. So the text file will contain all of the information that you must have entered during your image processing. The name, the the type of source, that was the logical drive, the sector count, the MD5 checksum, the SHA-1 checksum, and the likes. So once you get all of this, you completely have your image, you completely have this text file that you could refer back to, and you can completely have your case scenario, which is all of the piece of evidence that you must have put together as a first responder. So that does justice to the first stage of the investigation process, which is the identification stage, and then the second stage, which is the collection stage. So we've explained the first, in-depthly the first and the second stage of the forensics investigation process. So my colleague would come over now to explain, to take the last three stages of the forensic investigation, which is known as the examination stage, the analysis stage, and then the report and the presentation stage.
Okay, thank you very much, Okme. Good afternoon all, and welcome to the practical section of this webinar. My name is Uche Abwa, and my qualifications are as follows. I have a BSc in Information Communication Technology. I'm a certified ethical hacker. I'm also a certified forensic analyst, a certified security analyst. I've also implemented PCI DSS certification for most banks, including other service providers in Nigeria and other African countries, carried out network application security and risk management for organizations in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. And I've also facilitated numerous trainings on advanced network and application security testing for various organizations, including banks, both in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. So today, I'm going to be taking a practical session on the use of autopsy for cyber investigation. But before that, I would like to introduce to you what autopsy is. So autopsy is a digital forensic platform which can be used to analyze hard drives, media cards, smartphones, and the like, and also carry out cyber investigations. So basically, autopsy is a freeware and which can be downloaded from online. The link will also be shared to you so that you don't have to start downloading from unknown. We have various types of forensic tools like the FireEye network forensic tool, the X-rays forensics, and we have the Encode forensics. But for the course of the training today, I'll be showing you through a practical section on the usage of autopsy in creating a case, in adding a data source, and in carrying out cyber investigation. So for the purpose of our training today, we have a sample case study, which we would use to demonstrate the use of autopsy for cyber investigation. So now let's dive into our case study, our case scenario. So I'm going to read the case scenario for you all. So on the 27th of August 2004, a Dell CPI notebook computer with the serial number BLQLW was found abandoned along with a wireless card and an external homemade antenna. It is suspected that this computer was used for hacking purposes, although cannot be tied to a hacking suspect, Greg Snad. Greg also goes by the online nickname of Mr. Evil, and some of his associates have said that he will park his vehicle within range of wireless access points, like Starbucks and other T-Mobile hotspots, where he would then intercept internet traffic, attempting to get credit card numbers, usernames, and passwords. So now, if we look through this case scenario, we will see that we need to find evidences that can prove that Mr. Greg is actually the owner of the abandoned Dell system. And also, we will need to find out more evidences also to prove that Mr. Greg is actually linked to the nickname Mr. Evil, because it was just only suspected by his associates. Also, after getting all that evidences, we will need to further provide more evidences to show that the laptop was actually used to carry out hacking activities, which you can then provide a report to be presented in the court of law to bring justice to the criminal. So to begin our investigation, the first thing we're going to do here, we're going to take an image of the abandoned Dell laptop, which is the identification and the collection stage, using our FTK Imager, which my colleague has already explained earlier. So the next thing for us to do now after that is we're going to create a case, because the first thing to do, we have to create a case for any investigation we're going to be carrying out using our autopsy. So after creating that case, we'll add that image file that was created using the FTK Imager to our case. Then we'll begin to analyze that image and provide evidences for our investigation. So now I'm going to dive into the practical session where I will show you all we just mentioned here. So give me a few seconds while I dive into our practical lab. So now here we have our lab. So what I'm going to be showing you here now is creating a case, adding our data source to a case, and also start carrying out the investigation of our case. So I'm going to be launching the tool, which is the autopsy. So before I begin talking about creating a case, I would like to explain to us what a case is. So a case basically groups together the investigation data that we're going to analyze. For me, I would say a case is a portfolio where we can house our investigation. So to carry out any investigation on autopsy, you must first create a case so that our investigations can be grouped together in that case that we provided. So now to begin to create a case, follow me while I show you a practical demonstration of how I'm going to create a case. I'm going to add our image to our case and how to begin our investigation. So now I'm going to be clicking on the new case here. So now this option comes out, the dialog box shows, showing us we need to specify our case name. So for the course of the training, I'm going to be specifying the case name as 001. You can actually specify your case name to suit whatever investigation you're going to carry out. So after specifying the case name, what next? So if you look down under the case name, we can see our base directory. Base directory basically tells us where we want our case to be stored. So for easy referencing, I'm going to be storing my case on my desktop. So I'm going to be clicking the desktop and I'm going to click on the select button. So now this shows us that our base directory is going to be on our desktop. This is where our case folders will be stored for easy referencing. So now, if you look under the base directory, we can see a subheader called case type. It shows us the single user case type and the multi-user case type. So I'm going to be explaining this for you. When deploying autopsy, autopsy is deployed in two ways. Autopsy can be deployed as a single user case type and as a multi-user case type. Single user case type meaning that only one case can be opened at a time. This is where a standalone examiner uses just that one case. This is actually what we're talking about here. This is basically what we're going to be focusing on for the course of our training. But for multi-user, multiple examiners can actually access multiple cases at any given time. And cases can be opened by various multiple examiners. And the database is not going to be stored on the desktop of the system. It's going to actually, this requires a server to be created for multiple examiners to be able to access those cases at any given point in time. So these are the two basic autopsy deployments. So for the course of the training today, we're going to be working mainly with the single user case type. So after this, we'll select our next button to go to the next option. So this is an optional information for us to fill. We can actually fill in our case number, that is if we want to. Then under that, we can fill in our examiner. So for here, the examiner name shows my name because I'm the one carrying out the investigation on the abandoned Dell computer that we're going to be working with. So the other information can be filled optionally. If you want to, you can put your phone number, you can put your email address, and you can add some notes. So looking under here, you can see the organization here. This says the organization the analysis is being done for. So here we can actually specify if, just for instance, we are carrying out an investigation for maybe a banking organization. So what we'll do, we can come here, the manage organization. This shows us an option to create an organization that we want. We can actually impute our organization name here, maybe the point of contact, the email address of the person, and the phone number. But for the course of the training, I'm not going to be filling all that because we're just having a sample case study. So now I'm going to click in on finish so that our case can be created. So now after our case is being created, what the next step for us to do now is to add our image file, which was created using the FTK Imager on the abandoned Dell system. We have to import that image to our case so that we can carry out investigations as we are moving along. So now the case is being created. The next thing we're going to be seeing is the data source types, showing us the different data sources that Autopsy allows to be imported to our case. So just hold on a bit while it loads. So now we can see our data source types. From here, we can see the different data sources that can be added to our case. So the first thing we are seeing here is our DIX image or VM file, which we are going to be using because our FTK Imager created a forensic image for us from the abandoned Dell system. We also have our local DIX images we can import. We also have logical files also we can import and other data source types. So for our the course of the training today, I'm going to be selecting the DIX image type of data source that we're going to be importing. So I'm going to be clicking the next button. I'm basically showing us the examination stage of the autopsy, carrying out our investigation. So we've created a case. Now we are going to add our image file to that case. So yeah, this actually tells us the path that we're supposed to specify. We're supposed to specify the path of our image. So we're going to be clicking on the browse. If your image is stored in your local drive, maybe in a flash drive, you can actually navigate to where your image is stored, maybe in your C drive. You can navigate to that place, select your image. But for the course of the training today, our image is stored on our desktop in a folder called Cyber Investigation. So I'm going to be selecting my image that we've taken using our FTK Imager from the abandoned Dell system of our case study today. So another interesting thing to note after specifying our image path is the time zone. So in carrying out investigations, timestamps are very, very important for investigations. Now, this says that wherever your image is gotten from, you should always specify where the image is gotten from. So for instance, my image is gotten from the US and I specify Nigeria as my time zone, I'm going to get an incorrect result. Basically showing an example like if I want to verify maybe the last time the hacker went onto the system, the last time he visited the site or whatnot, if I specify a wrong time zone, it's going to give me an incorrect result, which will not be presentable in the court of law. So we have to be actually factual about our time zone specifications. So after that, I'm going to be clicking the next button. For the course of the training, our time zone is going to be specified from, it's gotten from the US Eastern. So I'm going to be selecting that for our time zone here. So after selecting that, we have to click on the next button. So now, this is where we have our ingest models. I'm going to be explaining what the ingest models do and a few of the ingest models for you so that we can know why this is very important when we're carrying out analysis on the image. So ingest models these are models that are used to analyze an image. So, and this can be done in two ways. If I deselect all these ingest models now, and I click on the next button, our image that is being imported to our case will not start analyzing. Nothing will be done on that image. So the image is not going to be analyzed at all. But if I select all this now and click on the next button, our image will start analyzing against all these ingest models that we have here. So I'm going to be explaining all few of the most important ingest models that need to be activated when we want to carry out analysis on our image. So for the recent activity, this basically extracts user activities for the last few days. So when we start analysis on our image and we enable this recent activity, we will start extracting where the recent activities that the hacker went to, probably the site he went to, the installed programs he did, the system information and whatnot. So this is a very important module that should be enabled when carrying out analysis on your image. So the next ingest module we're going to be talking about now, we're going to be talking about the hash lookup. So the hash lookup basically calculates the MD5 hashes, the SHA-1 hashes of files that is being analyzed on the image, and then goes into the database of that file and calculates also the file in the database, then verifies those files. If the file if the file hashes match, it's going to flag that file as a good file. But if it doesn't match, it's going to flag the file as a notable file, meaning that the file is a bad file. In Autopsy, notable files are called bad files. So this ingest module must be enabled so that we can know the integrity of a file that is being analyzed on the image. So the next ingest module that needs to be activated when carrying out analysis on the image, we have the file type identification. This basically just groups all different file types in the basic file type identification. For example, we have the exe files. When a disk is being analyzed, those exe files will be grouped into their separate folders for easy referencing. We have .png, we have .docs, .pdf. All those files will be kept separately in their different folders for easy referencing. So this is another interesting module that should be activated when you're analyzing an image. So for the next one, which is called the extension mismatch detector, this basically detects files that maybe the hacker is trying to hide. For example, the hacker has downloaded a malicious file on the system, which is an executable file. So what the hacker does, maybe the hacker now changes that executable extension to .pdf. So what Autopsy does, when you get an image of that compromised system, what Autopsy does is when it's analyzing that image, it's going to flag that file as an extension mismatch file because the file is not a PDF file, but rather an exe file. So Autopsy is going to flag that file, which just basically telling us that nothing can be hidden, whether you change an extension of any file or whatnot. Autopsy will flag that file and let you know that the file is an exe file. So the next module that should be activated when carrying out analysis on the image should be the module of embedded file extractor. So this basically helps to open up files for analysis, files that are stored in a zip file, a RAR file. So what Autopsy does is it extracts those files from those folders and basically analyzes those files, providing results for those files. So this is another interesting module that should be activated when carrying out analysis on an image. So the next one we're going to be talking about is the EXIF parser. This is also called the exchangeable email file format, which is used to get information about a picture. It used to get the camera type. It used to tell you the actual camera type that was used to take the picture. It gives you the geolocation of that picture. It gives you the time and date of when that picture was taken. So this is basically necessary when having to analyze evidences concerning pictures and images. So the next module we're going to be talking about is the keyword search. The keyword search basically helps you to search for files in fast options if your image is being analyzed. This keyword search will help you to search for files. Maybe you want to carry out investigations immediately without waiting for your image to be analyzed fully. This keyword search, once it's enabled, it allows you to search for the files, go to the file you were looking for, and provide evidences that can be used in the court of law. So another interesting module that should be activated or should be enabled when carrying out analysis on an image should be the email parser. So email parser basically identifies different email formats. So if a hacker might be using a MacBook style, for instance, to carry out his hacking activity, MacBook extension for email is called the EML. So if no matter what system the hacker is using, what this email parser does, it extracts those emails from either Mbox, EML, or PSTs, and actually analyzes those emails and provides results concerning those email addresses. So this is actually enabled in case you want to check what the hacker sent, the email addresses the hacker sent, the received ones he received from maybe his counterpart and whatnot. So this is actually necessary to carry out image analysis on an image. So now, another interesting module that you should be activating is the encryption detection module. This allows for files that are encrypted to be extracted from using Autopsy. So any file that is probably encrypted, maybe using the SHA-1, which are easy decrypted hashes, Autopsy will allow you, Autopsy will actually decrypt those files and provide the results for in the results viewer here. So another interesting thing to note again is the interesting files identifier. So now I'm going to be explaining this one. This one actually allows you to set a rule on file or an application. So now, for instance, I say when analyzing my image, Autopsy, if you see a text file of size 1 MB, flag it for me. So whenever my image is being analyzed, once it gets to see the text file and it sees that the text file is of size 1 MB, it's going to flag that file for me. So this actually aids in a faster search and provides an interesting file for you and whatnot. So basically, others are necessary for the egress modules configuration. So I'm going to be selecting all so that we can, they're all actually needed for your investigation type. So they're all very necessary to analyze an image. So after all configuring our ingress modules, I'm going to be clicking on the next button so that our image can start analyzing. So here, after adding our case, after creating a case, we've added the data source to our case. What we're going to be doing next is now I'm going to be showing you the basic user interface of Autopsy. So what we are seeing here is the basic user interface of Autopsy. So to my left here, this is called the tree viewer. So I'm going to be explaining what the tree viewer is and what it does. So the tree viewer, this basically contains 5 nodes. The tree viewer contains the data source, which contains our image file that we are seeing here. Then it contains also the views, which can be able to view files in their different types by extension and by mean type. It also contains deleted files from when the image is analyzing. It provides results for deleted files and all the files that are deleted. It also shows us the MB size. You can actually view size by their file sizes, which you can see from 50 MB to 200 MB here. We'd also see the results that is being extracted from our analyzed image. So anything that is being extracted from our analysis done on our image, we'll be able to see that in our tree viewer under the results section and under extracted content. As you can see now, our image is being analyzed. We are getting results from the analyzed image, which you can see. We have our web bookmarks, we have our web cookies. As the image is being analyzed, more results will be coming out. So if we look to our right here, this is called the result viewer. So result viewer basically helps to see whatever we are not able to see in our tree viewer. We'll be able to see it here. Like you can see now, we have web bookmarks here. We have 6 web bookmarks that has been extracted from our image that is being analyzed, but we will not be able to see that in our tree viewer here. So the result viewer actually helps us to see content that was clicked on our tree viewer. So now, if you look down to my right here, this is called the content viewer. So the content viewer basically helps to view files in different various formats. So for instance, I have a JPEG file here. I have an exe file here. I have maybe a video here in our result viewer. We will not be able to view those files in our result viewer. So what this content viewer helps us to do is whatever file that is selected in our result viewer, we'll be able to see a clearer view of what we're looking for. If it's an image that is selected in our result viewer here, we'll see that image in our content viewer. And this content viewer is actually enabled for module activation. We can actually add more modules. As you can see here, we have different modules for our content viewer. We can actually add more modules to our content viewer just to view. Maybe we have some content that we cannot view in our content viewer. We can add the module, install it here, and we'll be able to view what we selected in our content viewer. So if you look down to my right here, we can see this is called the status viewer. The status viewer basically shows us the progress bar of our image that is being analyzed. So if I click on this status viewer now, it basically shows us what is being analyzed currently on the image drive. So you can see here that recent activity is analyzed it's been analyzed on our image drive. So after the recent activity is analyzed, after the recent activity has been analyzed, the next ingest module is going to be analyzed on the image. That is why it is necessary for us to actually enable all modules so that we can get a fully completed analyzed image, so that we can carry out correct and substantial investigation. So after saying that, it basically tells us the progress bar of our image that has been analyzed. What we're looking up here to our top right is the keyword search. Now, once this is enabled, this allows you to actually search for a file without waiting for the image to be analyzed. So basically, before my image is being analyzed, I can type a file name here, and it actually searches, goes through the image that is being analyzed and gives us the result so that we can provide faster evidences to be provided in the court of law. So basically, after getting the tree viewer, we have our results viewer, we have our content viewer, we have the status viewer, we have also the keyword search. Another important thing to note is after carrying out our investigation proper, we will need to generate a report, which you can see here. We click on generate report, but we'll go to that when we're done carrying out our investigation. So now I'm going to be ending this analysis so that we can open a recent case which has the already completed fully analyzed image. Please note that the image is the same as the one we have actually imported here. So, but it just contains the fully analyzed image because we can't actually wait because of time. We can't wait for our image to start to be fully analyzed. So I'm going to be canceling this. So I'm going to cancel this and open a recent case which has our fully analyzed image. So before we start our investigation proper, I would like us to go back to our case scenario so that we can actually read that case scenario again, so that we'll have, we'll fully understand why we are carrying out this investigation. So hold on, sorry, let me go back to our case scenario. So now, our case scenario reads again. On the 27th of August 2004, a Dell CPI notebook computer with a serial number VLQLW was found abandoned alongside with a wireless card and external homemade antenna. It is suspected that this computer was used for hacking purposes, and although cannot be tied to a hacking suspect, Greg Snad. Greg also goes by the online nickname of Mr. Evil, and some of his associates have said that he will park his vehicle within range of wireless access points like Starbucks and other T-Mobile hotspots, where he would then intercept internet traffic, attempting to get credit card numbers, username, and passwords. So let's go back to our lab. So now, as a forensic expert, we need to think fast, we need to think outside the box, and we need to pay attention to details. So what we are going to do, like I mentioned earlier, we need to actually establish the fact that we need to establish the owner of the abandoned Dell system. We do not know who owns the abandoned Dell system. After that, we need to actually link the owner of that abandoned Dell system to the online nickname, Mr. Evil. Then we will also try and see out cases whereby the laptop was actually used to carry out hacking activities. So now, as we can see here, this is a fully analyzed image. We can see the extracted content, the results from our image. We can see different, it gives us various information that we need to know after analyzing our image. So now what we're going to be doing now is to start our investigation. So the first thing we need to know, like I mentioned earlier, we need to know who is the owner of this computer. So if we look to our results, let us see. So what do you think can be able to give us the system information? We can see in our results here, under the extracted content, we can see operating system information. Like I said before, as a forensic expert, you need to go straight to the point, you need to think outside the box, and you need to pay attention to details. So now we're going to be checking the operating system information to see if we can get any substantial evidence that can be used to prove that Mr. Greg actually is the owner of the abandoned Dell system. So now in our result viewer, after clicking the operating system information, we can see that the name of the system is NA. We can see the version of the system. We can see that the system is using a 32-bit operating system. As we scroll to the right, we can actually view more information. So we can actually see the program name, which is Windows XP. We can actually see that this Windows XP was installed on the 19th of August 2004. We can see the path. We can also see the product ID. And also, I think we've seen something here. We can now see that the owner of the system is Mr. Greg Schnard. So now we've found an evidence to show that Mr. Greg is actually the owner of that system. So now we found one evidence. So in cases like this, when you find an evidence, what is the next thing to do? So the next thing to do is to tag that evidence and leave a comment on the evidence so that when we generate our report, we'll be able to see that this is what we did. We found this evidence, we've tagged it, and we left a comment on it so that this is actually very substantial for our court to be presented in the court of law. So now, before we tag that result, what I'm going to be showing you all now is how to create a tag for our investigation. So before doing that, so now I'm going to go to tools. So now I'm going to create a tag for our investigation, which will house our name. So any evidence that we find will fall under our tag that we can actually leave a comment for that evidence. So now I'm going to click on tools. I'm going to click on the options. Now we can see we have different modules here. We can see different modules here, but for the course of the training, we're actually working with the tag module now. So we will click on the tag module. Then if you look down to our left, we can see that this gives us an option to create a new tag. So I'm going to click on new tag, then we'll actually name that tag. So we can call it abandon. This is depending on the investigation we are carrying out. So for our investigation today, I'm going to be naming it abandoned Dell computer investigation. So after that, we can actually leave a description of what we want. Then we'll click on the OK button and our tag is created. So we'll click on apply and we'll click on OK. So now we've created a tag for our investigation. So whatever evidence that we're going to find now will be registered under the tag, and we'll also leave a comment for the report purpose. So now we'll go back to our evidence that we've seen. We will click on the evidence just to get a clearer view, which can be viewed in our content viewer here. So now we can see that it shows us a much clearer view. It shows us the program name, the date and time the program was installed, our path, the owner of the system. So what we're going to be doing now, I'm going to be showing you how to tag an evidence. So now I'm going to be right-clicking on the evidence, and I'm going to add a result tag. So after adding the result tag, we'll come down to tag and comment so that we can leave a comment on that tag. So as you can see here now, we have abandoned Dell computer investigation. So I'm going to leave a comment on this. So I can say evidence 01, since this is our first evidence that we found. So we can say it's our evidence 01, and open a bracket. We can say computer name. Then we can say, computer owner. We can say Greg Schnard. All this is very, very necessary so that we can actually provide an accurate result to be used in the court of law. So after doing that, we can also add more evidences, like telling the people who are working with, we can tell them the system version. We can say the system version Windows XP. We can also state the date created. These are more just to provide further evidences to the court of law. We can say it's on the 19th of August. So now, once we've taken our first evidence, the next thing to do is to click on the OK button. So now, let us scroll to the left. So what we have here, if you look on this screen now, we can see that this shows us that the result or associated file has been tagged, and also a comment exists on the associated tag. So now we found our evidence. We've established that the owner of the abandoned Dell system belongs to Mr. Greg. So the next thing we're supposed to do is to actually link, to see if we can link Mr. Greg to Mr. Evil, or find out the actual nickname of Mr. Greg, because Mr. Greg cannot be apprehended yet, knowing fully well that hackers do not use their real names when they go online. When they go online, they actually have specific nicknames when they go online. So we have to find an evidence to show that Mr. Greg is actually Mr. Evil as reported by his associate. So what are we going to do now? So let us search, we can go to our tree viewer here and search for further results. Let us see what we can find in the web search to see if we can find any interesting file that can link Mr. Greg to Mr. Evil. So if you check here, he just went to the domain, he went to check his IP. There's nothing relevant here. Let us see our bookmarks to see if we can find anything relevant here. I don't think there's anything relevant here. So let us see. Like I said before, a forensic expert shouldn't be delayed in things that would cause delays. We should go straight to the point. Having viewing our result here, we should see that we can find, let us see if we can find any interesting thing on our operating system user account. Let us see, maybe an account was created on that system. Maybe it might have the specific nickname that the hacker uses to go online. So we'll click on the operating system user account information. So now what are we seeing here? We can see that we have about 5 different accounts created. We can see the Mr. account created. We can see an administrator account. We can see support. We can see guests, and we can see help assistant. Let us scroll to the side to see if we find further information. So we can see the user IDs. We can also see the path. Now, I think we've seen something very, very interesting here. What can we see here? We've seen the path. We've seen that a username bearing Mr. Evil was actually created on that system. Let us still go further and see if we can find further evidences to actually say that, okay, Mr. Evil is linked to the name Mr. Greg. So now, as we scroll to the side, we can actually see the date this profile was created on that system, which is on the 19th of August 2004. If we scroll to the side further, we can actually see the date assessed. Now, as a forensic expert, I keep mentioning this, you have to pay attention to details. What 15 showing that the user actually accessed that system on the set date and did a lot of things on that system. So now we can see the date assessed here, which is on the 27th of August 2004. Let us go back to our case scenario. I want to show you something very important, which I paid attention to details. Now, if you see our case scenario, on the 27th of August 2004, this same case was actually reported. So this tells us that Mr. Greg, which is linked, which also goes by the online nickname Mr. Evil, actually accessed that system on the same day that this case was actually reported. So now let's go back to our lab. So now that we've seen an evidence, this evidence is to prove that Mr. Greg is actually linked to Mr. Evil. Shows that this system was actually, a profile was actually created on that system having Mr. Evil as the name. So now we're going to, like I said before, any evidence that we find, we'll have to tag that evidence and leave a comment which can be presented in the court of law when we generate our report. So now I'm going to be right-clicking on this again. I'm going to be adding our result tag. Like I said earlier, we'll leave a tag and we'll add a comment. So now we have our evidence too. So we can say profile created on system. This is like a sample. When you're carrying out proper investigations, you can actually name it to suit the investigation. Profile created on the computer. So we can say Mr. Evil. Mr. Evil. Then we can actually add the date created, which is on the 2004 08/19. then we can actually say the date assessed. I can say 2004, 08/27. We can actually add some other information like this was the same day case was reported, so that it will provide a very articulated report which will be presented in the court of law. So we can actually say, okay, so if we look to the left, we can see that a comment has been, the file has been tagged and a comment is left on that tag. So now we've gotten two evidences. We've established the fact that Mr. Greg is the owner of the system, and we've also established the fact that Mr. Evil is linked to Mr. Greg. So now we can't just apprehend Mr. Greg just like that. What if we didn't carry out any hacking activity? What if we just actually goes online to just maybe visit malicious sites and all that? So now what we're going to do again is to check to see if the laptop was actually used to carry out hacking activities. So what can we search in the results? Let's check our USB drive. Probably he downloaded some malicious tools and used the USB to install it on the system to carry out hacking activities. We don't know about that. So let's check the USB drive. What do we have here? There's nothing really relevant there. It just shows us the USB attached, internal USB attached to the device. Let us see. What do we have? What can we see? Let's check our web history. Let us see if actually he went to some malicious sites to download some malicious programs to carry out malicious Wi-Fi hacking activities. So let's go. And for a forensic expert, you should be familiar with some of the hacking tools. You should also be familiar with so many sites that, so many malicious sites that can lead to downloading malicious programs. So now we need to pay attention to details while we're searching for the web history because it's a lot. So we have to scroll any website that we see that is malicious, or we know that we can download malicious content from that website. We're going to be tagging that website, and we're going to be leaving a comment on that website showing that he actually visited those sites. And we'll also show the username. As you can see here, you can see that the username appears alongside with the visited site. So it actually shows that Mr. Evil is the one going through all these sites. So now let's go and search for our site to see if any malicious site was visited during the course of this hacking activity. So we can scroll down, follow me as I scroll down, please. Sorry, this is a lot, but we have to find, we're carrying out an investigation and we need to find out, we need to provide further evidence to find out if he actually carried out hacking activities with the system. So we can see he visited Yahoo, MSN, these are just normal sites that anyone can go to. Now, if you look up, I think I can see some sites. So this is a site, it's called Etaro. Etaro, like we all know, it allows you to see what is happening on your network, basically reveals all network activities. So I think this will also aid in maybe performing some Wi-Fi hacking activities. So I'm going to be tagging that. I'm going to just hold my button for that and scroll for further malicious sites that he visited. So I'm going to be continue checking the site. So follow me while I check it. If you look here, also you can see that this site is also a hack forum where you can actually download malicious sites. So I'm going to be selecting that. I'll scroll further. So we're actually checking for malicious sites. You can also see Elite Hackers. Elite Hackers basically tells us that this site, this is also a hack forum too, where the hacker has visited probably to download some malicious tools to carry out Wi-Fi activity. I'm also going to be tagging that. You can see the Etaro too. So if you feel that we've found enough sites that can actually prove that the hacker visited these malicious sites to download those sites, we can actually just tag those sites that we've actually come across. So Major Gigs also is a malicious site too, where you can download malicious tools. So I'm going to be right-clicking on this this site that I've selected, and I'm going to add our results tag just as we've done for other evidences that we found. So I'm going to be clicking on the tag and comment. So I'm going to be labeling this as evidence 03. This is basically just showing us how we can find evidences so that we can prove that the hacker actually carried out what he was reported for. So now we've seen evidence 3. we can say malicious site visited. Malicious site visited. When the report is generated, it's going to actually throw us the malicious site that we've actually tagged. So we can actually also name the site here. We can say www.etero. I can just name, or let me say majorgigs.com. I can actually list all the sites that was tagged, but for the course of this training, I'm just going to list only one, and I'll click on the OK. So it shows us that all the tags, all the files, all the website that was visited has been tagged, and the comment has been left on them. So the next thing we're going to be checking for, we can't just say that because he visited those sites that he actually downloaded those applications and used them for hacking purposes. So now we have to find if this site, if whether this site he visited, he actually downloaded these applications to carry out his hacking activities. I'm actually thinking like this because as a forensic expert, you have to go further ahead and think outside the box. You have to think fast and okay, you've gotten evidence that the owner of the system is Mr. Greg. You've gotten evidence that Mr. Evil is linked to Mr. Greg. We've also gotten evidence that he visited sites to carry out the hacking activities. But we don't know for sure if he actually downloaded these applications and installed them on the system to carry out these hacking activities. So what do we do next? What can we see? To know if he actually downloaded these applications, what do? We go back to our tree viewer. This is where all the results are from the analyzed image will appear. So we can actually just see installed programs. I'm going straight to the point because we don't need to beat around the bush here, telling us that since we need to find out if you actually downloaded those applications or programs and installed on the system to carry out the application, the Wi-Fi hacking activity. So I'm going to be clicking on installed programs. So what do we see here? Like I mentioned earlier, like I tagged earlier, we can see that he actually went to those sites and he downloaded this Etero application. Like I said, this is an application that lets you see what is happening on your network. It reviews network activities. So I'm going to be tagging that. So another thing again, we can see here, we can see Network Stumbler. Network Stumbler is also a tool for Windows that aids in that facilitates detection in wireless networks. So probably when he parks his car close to the Starbucks and the all those Wi-Fi hacking places, anybody that is connected to a free network, he is going to actually connect to that network and try to see the activities that are going on that network, which he has downloaded these applications to be able to help him carry out those activities. Network activities. We also have the Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel, as you all know, this is a very malicious tool which you can use to do ARP poisoning. ARP poisoning in the sense that once you connect to a network and we have users on that network, what Cain and Abel does is to analyze those networks, to provide username and passwords for those users, and it can actually crack the username and passwords for those users if there are any hash passwords on those users. So he actually downloaded these applications on the site. So I'm going to be tagging all this. I'm going to tag this. I'm going to tag LookALAN. These are all Wi-Fi hacking, not basically hacking, but the aid in facilitating Wi-Fi hacking activities. So I'm also going to be tagging the Cain and Abel. As you can see, we have anonymizer here. What anonymizer does is that it attempts to make activities on the internet untraceable. So basically, the hacker was trying to make his activities online untraceable, maybe by spoofing his IP address or changing it so that no one will actually suspect that he's actually carrying out those hacking activities. So with further ado, after getting all these applications, we know that he actually performed those Wi-Fi hacking activities. So what we're going to be doing now, we're going to be tagging this report, these evidences that we've seen. So now I'm going to be clicking on, right-click on the content that I've selected. I'm going to be clicking on tag and comment. So now I will say it's evidence 4. Evidence 04. So I can say malicious tools installed. So I can say malicious tools installed. I can also list some tools that I installed. We have Skin Enable. We have Anonymizer. We have Anonymizer. I can then tag this result that we've had. So now it shows us that we've tagged our results, and we also left a comment on the evidences provided. So now we've actually seen that this system belongs to Mr. Greg. We've actually seen that this system, Mr. Greg, is actually linked to Mr. Evil. We've actually seen that Mr. Evil actually visited some sites to download malicious software, and we actually established the fact that those softwares were actually installed and downloaded and installed on the system. So the next thing we're going to be doing now is to generate some substantial evidences which can be presented in the court of law. I'm sure with these evidences, we'll be able to prove that Mr. Greg is actually Mr. Evil, and this laptop was used to carry out Wi-Fi hacking activities. So now, like I mentioned earlier, to generate our reports, which can be presented in the court of law, we're going to click on the generate button here, which is the up. Which you can see my mouse here. We'll click on generate button. So now, reports can actually be generated in different modules. We have the HTML format, we have the Excel format, we have the files, the text format, and we have other formats that can be generated in the report. So for because of the training today, we're going to be generating our report in a HTML format. This gives us like a nice and fancy interface for our investigation. So now I'm going to be labeling my header as investigation results. After that, I'm going to be clicking on the next button. So what we are seeing here is to configure our report. So now, if you look, we have 3 ways to configure our report. We have configuring report in the sense that we will generate a report for all results. So if we are asked to just generate a report for the evidences that we find, we will not need to generate a report for all results. We will actually click on the all tag results because we've tagged our results, we've provided evidences. So what we need to just provide, the report we need to provide now is for the specific evidences that we've provided. So now, if you want to generate a report for all the results, maybe they want to see everything that was analyzed on the image, you can click on the add all results. But for the course of the training today, I'm going to be exporting only the tag results that we've actually generated. So now, and if you have various tag results also, they will appear here when you want to specify the specific tag results, and you can select the desired tag result that you want. So I'm going to be clicking on the finish so that our report can be generated. So now our report is being generated. So we can hold on while the report is being generated. So once it is generated, we click this to view our report. So now we can see our autopsy forensic report. So we can see the case number, we can see the number of images, that's the number of images that was imported to the image. So now, what else can we see? We can see the examiner name, which is my name as the examiner. We can also see the time zone. We can see the part, the software information, and the ingest modules that was actually used our image. So if you come to this report navigation, we can see the installed programs. We can also see the operating system. We can see the user accounts. These are all the reports that we've tagged. Now, to see our tag results, we can come here to see the tag results. So if you look closely, you can see evidence 01, computer owner, Greg Schneider, the Windows XP date, the date was created. You can also see the evidence 02, the profile created on the computer, Mr. Evil, the date was provided. So this is basically reports that should be generated when after carrying out your investigation. So these reports will be presented in the court of law and can also be saved as a PDF file. So now let us go back to our case scenario to do a recap on the forensic investigation stages. So now, after creating our case, adding our data source to our case, we've configured our ingest module to analyze our image. We've also carried out our investigation of our image. The basic forensic stages are the identification and the preparation, that is which my colleague earlier explained, that's identifying a computer device that has been compromised. Then the second stage is the collection stage. This is where the FTK Imager is brought to play, whereby you take an image of the compromised system. So for the third stage, which is the examination stage, that I've done. I've examined the image. I've also imported the image to our case. Then the first stage is the analysis stage, which this utilizes the who, the when, the where, and where of an accident, basically gathering all the evidences from our investigation. So we've gathered evidences, we've analyzed the image, and then the next stage of the forensic investigation, which is the reporting and presentation, which I've already done. We've provided our report. This contains all tagged evidences, the file, and relevant information for the requested services, which will be presented in the court of law. So I believe that with this presentation given, all of you will appreciate the use of autopsy and see how you can actually use autopsy to carry out various kinds of investigations. Thank you, and God bless. So,
thank you very much, Uche, for your wonderful presentation. So we'll just be going straight to the questions we have already. So we have here, someone said, can autopsy still flag applications initially installed by the hacker, but have been uninstalled on the system before we took out that means before we imaged that particular system? Yes, autopsy would flag both deleted files, both uninstalled files. So once you load that particular image on autopsy, all the deleted files that have probably been deleted by the hacker, or all the programs that have been installed, that have been uninstalled, autopsy would show them. So another person here said, what if the hacker have cleared browser's history and it does whatever he did in the incognito mode? How can we handle that? Yeah, there are some third-party applications that we can actually use to get those details. You know, you could decide to use the incognito mode just to like protect yourself from being sent. So you could use like some third-party applications to get all of these details. We have third-party applications such as the Kids Guard Pro. We have the FamiSafe and the likes. So using any of these applications, you get the answer to your question. So
let me just add, just hold on, okay. Let me just add to what you said there. You know, actually, autopsy is just one of, you know, the very many forensic tools that you can use, you know, to run analysis and, you know, get to the root of, you know, whatever investigations you are doing. So, I mean, it's one of just the many tools you could use. You can actually use it in combination or, you know, along with a number of other tools as you deem fit. But, you know, we just decided to demonstrate this because, I mean, it's quite, this is, you know, at a basic level, and autopsy is actually a free tool, you know, that you can also, you know, employ in your investigative activities.
Okay, thank you, Ekene. So another person asked the question here that, is it possible for autopsy to miss out on actions carried out on compromised systems? If no, does it mean that the digital footprints will always be left? So the answer to this is, it depends on the kind of action that must have been carried out. So if it is something that is related to memory, definitely autopsy won't see that. So you have to use a tool for the memory analysis tool to actually get that particular information. So we have here, someone said, can we image network packets? No, we can't image network packets, but we can analyze the network packets using the network packet tools. So if we first of all do the analysis using the network packet tools before you can do whatever you want to do after it. Someone also asked here that if a hardware blocker is not available, what software blockers can be used? We have different types of software blockers that can be used. We have SafeBlock, we have the right controller. Even Encode, which is a forensic analysis tool, would also support software right blocking. So other tools that can be used, as I've said earlier, you can use the SafeBlock tool, then you can also use the white controller tool.
Okay, just before we go on, someone asked if the session was on cyber, securing the cyberspace. So this session is basically, you know, demonstrating the use of forensic tools like autopsy to get to the root of a cyber attack investigation. So that's basically what this session is about, and not necessarily securing, the cyberspace, as it were.
Okay, someone would like to know if the Access Data FTK tool is a free or a paid software. It's actually free. So Access Data FTK is free. We'll be sharing the link very soon in case you need to download later on after the training. And then even forensics that we used for the investigation is also a free tool.
We'll just take one or two more questions because we're almost on the hour, almost 3, so that we don't exceed the time too much. So just 2 more questions, and we call it a session.
Okay, thank you, Kenny. We'll just quickly run to the 2 more questions. So someone said, can we use FTK Imager for imaging mobile device? Example, Android. FTK Imager may be used for imaging an Android phone if it is rooted. However, it may not always work. So in situations like this, there are some mobile forensics tools that can also be used. We have such as Oxygen, we have the Beckersoft acquisition tools. So in a case where you try using FTK Imager to image an Android phone, as long as it's rooted and it doesn't work, then just try to explore all of these extra tools that's been mentioned. Then the last question, but not the least, someone said, what can be used in an attack where all the tracks have been cleared? That means you don't get to see the logs, you don't get to see the deleted event logs and the likes. So in such a situation, the first thing that comes to your head is the attacker has to be a sophisticated attacker. That means the attacker is actually knows exactly what he or she is doing. Notwithstanding, we have several data recovery tools that can be used. Tools such as the forensic recovery of evidence device tool. So you could use the Fred tool to actually find out all of these files, all of these log and events logs that have been deleted.
Okay. Thank you very much, Okpe and Uche. I'm afraid I don't know. There's still a couple of other questions, but I don't think we'll be able to handle everything. But what can happen is, please just shoot us an email with your questions, and we can do well to get back to you, as fast as we can. So thank you everyone for being part of this session. If you were part of the previous session, we mentioned that we'll be having, series of these webinars, and, definitely would like you to be part of our future webinars. Should we host any of them going down the line. So thank you very much. And of course, we're still your cybersecurity, preferred partners. So if you wish to get any security advisory or, anything along those lines, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will definitely oblige your request and, respond. So thank you once again, and everyone, please do enjoy the rest of your day.